So in today's video, I'm going to talk about the most, probably common question that gets asked for myself or anyone that's in coaching is how long before I see results? And I always reply, next Tuesday at about 3:30. You should really see a big difference there. So yeah, in today's video, I'm going to jump in and talk about some of the cogs that are in motion when you're trying to get in shape, and some of the things that can affect the overall timeline of how you want to get in shape. Just reminding myself, a guy actually sent me a food diary of ice cream for breakfast, McDonald's for lunch, and I think an Indian for dinner, and then in the same sort of message asked about how long it would take to see results. So yeah, that's the type of questions I get. Actually, the best questions I got were when I worked for Men's Health, and a guy messaged me and said, "Neil, I've bought a muscle vest, but I'm not too big, but I'm not too toned. Should I wear it?" So yeah, how long does it take to see results? So this is a how long is a piece of string style idea, but I thought with everyone going back into the gyms this week to do all the stuff that didn't work for them last time before lockdown, I thought I'll jump in and talk about some of the variables that you need to take into consideration when you are trying to see results, because it is a slow process, especially if you're not doing stuff right. Even if you're doing stuff, if you're doing everything right, it's still a slow process. So yeah, I thought I'll talk about some of the variables that come into play with getting in shape. So the first thing is always like back history. Years ago when I started coaching, it was dead easy because no one had done crazy crash diets or had been to a bad couple of trainers and learned how to do everything wrong. Like essentially a lot of people were a blank canvas, and you were able to teach them from scratch. So back history comes into play. You know, when you think about how long is it going to take me to get results, it's like, well, have you been starving yourself for months and played about with crazy diets, and have you hurt yourself doing bad deadlifts, and have you got a lot of other sort of injuries that are going to come into play? Because that's the sort of, that back history is the sort of first thing that will have an impact. So a lot of times when you see a really fast, good transformation of someone, they have been a blank canvas, or there's a bit of muscle memory or something there that will launch them forward a bit. So back history is number one. Another thing that comes into play is the technique side of it. So when I'm teaching a lot of people, I joke that I'm the worst trainer in the world, because they come to me with a 200 kg deadlift and leave with a 50 kg deadlift, because I'm telling them your deadlift's terrible, and although you can get away with lifting it at the minute, you're probably going to wreck yourself. So actually we have to scrub it backwards. So a lot of times you do have to take a step backwards before you take that jump forward. And with the technical side of it, then you have to sort of, you're relearning how to walk again. It's quite hard then to knock bad habits out of people and do the reteaching side of it. So when it comes to getting in shape, how long is it going to take me to get in shape? Well, how quickly are you going to master the technique that either you didn't know or was taught to you badly before, whether you've just got it from YouTube or a personal trainer or whatever it is. So that would be another sort of point, is how quick can you master your technique. Third thing is probably an off the back technique, is things that happen when you start training and you start training well, is like your coordination improves. So say you're doing some deadlifts or squats or whatever, you just look better. And it's funny, whether it's, so say you're doing like a split squat or lungey type things, balance is better, you move a bit better, you look like you're spatially more aware. So before there's any sort of body transformation idea, you will have things like your coordination improve, and with that you'll have like your nervous system improve. So when you start lifting weights, your body's like, I don't know what you're doing here, you're going to wreck yourself, you're crazy, what are you doing? And you actually can't use a lot of muscle, and this is a neural inhibition where your nervous system just sort of puts the brakes on a wee bit, says, you know what, I don't want you using a lot of muscle because you haven't got the skill yet. And where you actually really see this is Olympic weightlifters are a good example. That although they're very strong dudes. A lot of them aren't massive because there's weight categories, and it's the same with a lot of the boxers and stuff. So these guys can have, so say this is my muscle, for example, and I can only tap into 30% of it, whereas these guys might have a smaller muscle, but they're able to tap into 60% of it, then they'll be able to lift more weight and everything else. So when you start lifting weights, it's not so much that you're stacking on loads of muscle and there's hypertrophy and everything's getting bigger. It's your nervous system gets better at basically working as you teach it the moves. So you start adapting, and your body goes, you know what, you're okay here. We've done this before. I recognize this pattern, this shape. We'll let you have a little bit more muscle. So neural inhibition is reduced. Other things that come into play when someone says, how long will it take me to get in shape? Well, ideally you want to be younger than you are now, which is very difficult. There's genetic sort of factors. For some people it will just be that wee bit slower. Like a lot of guys I work with are maybe these 40 plus dudes, and your testosterone isn't what it was when you were 20. Your lifestyle is very different. You might have sleep patterns knocked out by the kids, which I know this happens to me. Work-wise, you might be at a laptop a lot. You might just have a lot more going on. So lifestyle plays a big part, and it's a hard thing to sort of manage. And this is why when you have the crazy lifestyle, you need your workouts, which are going to be those 2, 3, 4 hours a week, to be very efficient, as opposed to going into the gym and arsing about. So yeah, in terms of how long does it take to get in shape, lifestyle factors come into it, and this is why it's such a minefield, and there is no perfect answer. The one I haven't talked about yet is nutrition. Now, nutrition is a funny one, because if you do a mad diet, and actually Stephen Nolan, the TV presenter, shock jock DJ, was a good example of this. He was on maybe 500, 800 calories or something, I think I read, and I think he lost 6 stone really fast, but now he's put on 8 or 9. So if you're wanting to get in shape fast, you can do some fast crazy shit and it will look good for a picture or photos or whatever. But if you want to do it long term, it's slow and it's not sexy. And a lot of times when guys email me, they say, oh, how quick do I see results? I'm like, ideally I want you to do it quite slow, and I'm gonna not just give you a fish, but teach you how to fish, essentially. And guys have said to me, oh, that's this other guy does it, his transformations are fast or whatever. I'm like, yeah, but what's the downside of that? Because the faster the transformation, often the bigger the rebound. And like what I sell isn't sexy. I say to guys, listen, you might lose half a kg a week, if even. Sometimes that'll level out, and but ultimately I want you to feel better, look better in a year, 2 years from now. I want you to feel fitter when you're playing with the kids and everything else. So generally the faster you make that transformation happen, the more it can bite you in the arse. So it's something you have to pay real attention to, you know. So yeah, nutrition, ideally it should be habit based as opposed to diet based, and the slow and steady will always mean more than the fast out of the block sort of approach. But realistically, if you're wanting a transformation, I think a year is a lovely time frame to sort of build yourself in slow and steady, not coming out of the blocks doing any crazy sort of diet stuff. And the tweaks over a year, or the tweaks that you make on that daily, weekly, monthly basis might not look like much, but in a year's time they'll be massive. So this video is as much a bit of a prequel, because my next video is probably going to be on my big mate there, Big Iron, and he's done fantastic and he looks really well. So but again, it's a slow and steady transformation, and it's so many variables come into this game that it's just crazy. It's why I no longer personal train the way I used to years ago, which was, you know, people would have came to you and got a session, and then you're trying to cover everything in one session. It just didn't work. And now I only train guys who will invest in the longer process, because anything less than that is just watered down pish. So yeah, remember to like, subscribe, and you'll enjoy the next one.